The U.S. Coast Guard announced that it had tracked a group of Russian naval vessels, including 2 submarines, as they crossed into U.S. waters off the coast of Alaska. The vessels reportedly entered the U.S. Exclusive Economic Zone, EEZ, in an effort to avoid sea ice, a move allowed under international laws and customs. According to a Coast Guard news release, the crew of the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Stratton observed the Russian military ships crossing the maritime boundary, venturing 30 miles inside the U.S. EEZ. The group consisted of 2 submarines, a frigate and a tugboat. The encounter occurred nearly 60 miles northwest of Point Hope, Alaska. Rear Admiral Megan Dean stated, "We are actively patrolling our maritime border in the Bering Sea, Bering Strait, and Chukchi Sea with our largest and most capable cutters and aircraft to protect U.S. sovereign interests, U.S. fish stocks, and to promote international maritime norms." She confirmed that the Stratton ensured there were no disruptions to U.S. interests during the encounter. The Stratton, a 418-foot Legend-class national security cutter, is part of Operation Frontier Sentinel, which aims to maintain a U.S. presence when strategic competitors operate near U.S. waters. The Coast Guard has encountered several similar incidents in recent months, including a Russian ship spotted in international waters within the U.S. EEZ around Alaska's Aleutian Islands just last month. On July 6th, the U.S. Coast Guard spotted 4 Chinese military ships in international waters north of the Imminent Pass in the Aleutian Islands within the U.S. Exclusive Economic Zone. Later in the month, on July 24th, U.S. and Canadian fighter jets intercepted 2 Russian bombers and 2 Chinese bombers flying together in the Alaska Air Defense Identification Zone, according to North American Aerospace Defense Command. The joint operation marked the first time Russian and Chinese aircraft entered the Alaska ADIZ together, a U.S. defense official told CBS News. While the bombers did not pose a direct threat, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin noted that this event demonstrated an increasing military cooperation between Russia and China, raising concerns for U.S. defense. The Alaska ADIZ, while part of international airspace, is a zone where all aircraft must be identified for national security purposes, according to NORAD. Military activity has increased in the Arctic, with U.S., Canadian, Russian, and Chinese forces becoming more active in the region. In a related event in July, Russia scrambled fighter jets to intercept 2 U.S. long-range bombers approaching its border over the Barents Sea. The U.S. military has stationed 130 soldiers and mobile rocket launchers on Shemya Island, part of Alaska's Aleutian chain, in response to increasing Russian military activity near U.S. territory. In the past week, 8 Russian military planes and 4 naval vessels, including 2 submarines, approached the region during joint military drills with China. Although none of the Russian planes entered U.S. airspace, the Pentagon emphasized that the situation is being closely monitored. Pentagon spokesperson Jen Pat Ryder noted that similar activities have occurred before and that the U.S. is prepared to respond if necessary. On September 12th, as part of a force projection operation, soldiers deployed to Shemya Island, located 1,200 miles southwest of Anchorage. They brought 2 high-mobility artillery rocket systems, HIMARS, to enhance defense capabilities. Additionally, U.S. Senator Dan Sullivan of Alaska confirmed the deployment of a guided missile destroyer and a Coast Guard vessel to the region, coinciding with the Russian and Chinese Ocean 24 military exercises in the Pacific and Arctic Oceans, which began on September 10th. The North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, tracked and monitored Russian military planes operating off the coast of Alaska over a 4-day period. Russian aircraft were detected on September 11th, 13th, 14th, and 15th, operating within the Alaska Air Defense Identification Zone, ADIZ, an area where the U.S. requires aircraft to identify themselves, though it lies outside of U.S. sovereign airspace. Despite requests for comment, the Russian embassy in the U.S. did not respond. NORAD reported that the frequency of these incursions has varied annually. On average, there have been 6 to 7 intercepts per year, but 2022 saw 26 Russian aircraft enter the Alaska zone, with 25 already tracked this year. Unlike previous incidents where U.S. or Canadian aircraft escorted Russian planes, no photographs were released from these recent encounters. NORAD officials, including Canadian MOD Jenny Durenzis, declined to confirm whether jets were scrambled to intercept the Russian planes. In July, the U.S. Coast Guard also observed Chinese military ships near the Imminent Pass in the Aleutian Islands, operating within international waters but inside the U.S. Exclusive Economic Zone. Additionally, Coast Guard patrols in the Chukchi Sea on September 10th tracked 4 Russian naval vessels, including 2 submarines, a frigate, and a tugboat, 60 miles northwest of Point Hope, Alaska. These ships briefly crossed into U.S. waters to avoid sea ice, as allowed under international maritime law. 2 years ago, a similar incident occurred when U.S. Coast Guard ships encountered a combined Russian-Chinese Chinese naval fleet near Alaska's Kiska Island in the Bering Sea. In August 2023, the U.S. Navy dispatched 4 destroyers to the coast of Alaska after 11 Chinese and Russian warships were spotted patrolling international waters within the U.S. Exclusive Economic Zone (EEZ). Pentagon spokesperson Majid Jen and Pat Ryder said the heightened activity is being monitored closely but is not currently considered a direct threat. U.S. Senator Dan Sullivan, advocating for a stronger military presence in the Aleutians, urged for a robust response to the increased military cooperation between Russia and China. In the past 2 years, we've witnessed joint Russian-Chinese air and naval exercises off our shores and even a Chinese spy balloon over our communities, Sullivan stated. He highlighted the growing importance of the Arctic region in global power competition between the U.S., Russia, and China. Sullivan has also called for reopening the U.S. Navy's base at Adak in the Aleutian Islands, which was closed in 1997. He believes the base's strategic location could bolster U.S. defense capabilities in the Arctic. Meanwhile, Russia has been expanding its military presence in the Arctic, recently unveiling 2 nuclear submarines as part of a broader strategic push in the region, led by Russian President Vladimir Putin.
If this video grabbed your attention, don't miss our next live discussion on another hot-button issue, led by our aspiring journalists, only on U.S. News Now. Thanks for watching.